Welcome back to another segment of Karabo and I. The agricultural economist duo that is keeping you up to date with the latest in all things agriculture in South Africa. The last time we were here, we were doing a nice fun intro. If you have not seen that video yet, please hop onto the previous video and go and get to know us. But today, we are here, we are keeping things a little serious. We are talking about the latest stuff that is happening in agriculture, or rather a recap of what happened in 2024 that is actually laying the foundation for the season that we're currently in. And just for those, because we haven't been here for a while, it's nice to give you guys an overall view of what's happening in South Africa.
Definitely. So we're just going to keep it nice, quick, sweet and short. Now we're in 2025. Why is Fancy looking at me when I talk about sweet and short and quick? We're in 2025 now. 2025 now. So I think let's just quickly reflect on what the year was of 2024. And maybe just to start, one of the topical stuff within the sector was El Nino, which actually ended up causing heat wave and dry conditions. So last year, March and Feb, we did see dry conditions, and that's a very critical time for summer planting. That's when the summer crops are growing nicely. So if you have heat at the time, it means it will negatively affect the crop that you are growing. It means that your yield will not be as desired, and as a result, we saw that crop being cut by 23% compared to the previous year. So that heat wave definitely did a number on the agricultural sector, where the volumes or the output was actually cut by 23%. And that is why currently, Consi is going to tell you about maize prices, that links.
Yeah, so then you would have seen that the white maize prices especially went, it basically skyrocketed. It was almost about 7,000 rand per ton.
New record.
New record in South Africa, by the way. And that is also just the demand that's being pushed, because it wasn't just South Africa that was dry, but also the neighboring countries were also experiencing El Nino induced drought conditions. So we were exporting some of our crops because fortunately in South Africa we still had enough for the domestic consumption, and that also pushes up the prices. The fact that there's so much demand but the supplies were very limited. So when Karabo talks about just the summer crops, for those that are new to the channel, we are referring to maize, we are referring to soybeans, we are referring to your sunflower, your groundnuts. So yes, mainly when we talk about the summer crops, we're talking about the grains and the oil seeds that are being grown roughly from around October, and then we harvest around March, April. That's why those February, March weather conditions play such a massive role on the crop quality and the yields.
And because you mentioned harvesting, we are really hoping that for this season, I'm just linking it back a bit, we will have early harvesting and early crop coming in being harvested, so that at least the prices can start to sort of stabilize. So maybe, I don't know.
As much as that is a hope, Karabo, due to we had very late rains last year. So we are linking what happened in 2023-2024 production season with also what's happening with 2024-2025 production season. So the maize you guys are going to get now, which is being planted now, right? So last year we had drought, it was horrible. That time we had crop losses. Then we were very what can I say, positive, because according to weather forecast, they said that we were moving from a El Nino to a La Nina, and in that weather phenomena, you're expecting that we will have more abundant rain in the next season. So our producers and the industry were very positive, looking forward to it, but it didn't really pan out that way.
Yes, like you're saying, we did have late rains. We had a lot of other heat waves in other parts of the country, where farmers were actually planting, and then things are not coming out. And they have to replant, guys. That's money.
And then rain came, but then in some areas it was too much rain. So
that's also a problem, guys. Too much of anything is a problem.
Exactly. If you remember December, we had a lot of rain.
So December and Jan, we did have rain,
a lot of
but before it was dry.
It was very dry.
And remember, Consi said starts in October the season, but We are only talking rain December.
Yes.
What's that?
Yes, exactly. So if you're not in an irrigated land, so that can also. So even in this season, there's a bit of positivity.
Yes.
I think they planted more maize than what they anticipated. Actually,
Yes.
better than last year even.
Yeah.
But now we are looking out to see the quality and what actually comes out of the fields when they start to harvest. And we are keeping an eye on the crop conditions.
February and March, like we did say, we have to really just look at what's happening in the market. So last year, like we're saying, the first point, El Nino, dry conditions, and then overall production was cut. And we're talking grains and oilseeds, your maize, sunflower, soybeans, groundnuts, all of those. And how does it affect us as consumers, Consi?
Oh, absolutely. You know, your maize, we consume
Especially white maize.
White maize in South Africa predominantly. So, like we mentioned earlier, if the white maize price is very high, it affects things down the supply chain. So it might affect you, the consumer, in all the white grains that you are buying. But also, we're going to touch on the animals now, because those feeds that Karamo just mentioned, the soybeans, the maize, and all of that, it plays a vital role in the animals that are being fed intensively. Your pigs, your chickens, your beef. So if the inputs for those industries are very expensive, like the feed is expensive, so does your eggs, so does your chicken, so does your beef, your meat, your pork. And also we had a lot of challenges in the meat sector. Garabo, I think you can touch on that.
Now the silicon naming. Okay, done with El Nino. Let's move to the other part, animal diseases, because Consi was talking about livestock. So that's the second thing that was very topical in the past year. So we had foot and mouth disease, and we also had avian influenza. So I just want to give you an update in terms of avian influenza. The whole of 2024, we didn't see any new outbreaks.
True.
And normally winter, that's when the spikes or a lot of cases come through. So we had a whole year of no new outbreaks for avian influenza, which means recovery.
Yes.
Because even the prices of eggs are not as high as they used to be. Remember that time when we had a shortage? That December.
And we were all complaining. Yes, I remember. And we did a video, guys. If you don't know, you can go back to our prior videos. Like we've covered this in that year. I think it was 2022 or 2023, where the egg prices were skyrocketing. I was listening to 702 the other day. Some lady was still complaining that the egg prices are still very high. Obviously not at that level, but she expected it to like drop drastically just because now the avian influenza is more or less monetarily controlled. But the thing is, it takes time for the industry to recover, right? So you're not going to necessarily see the impact on your egg prices immediately. It's maybe a year or two to settle, to break even. And also with the changing environment, if the feeds continue to be expensive because we are in a drought, unfortunately you still remain be paying a bit of a higher price.
Yeah, just to add to what Consi is saying, definitely it does take time. Even now, if you look at the chickens that lay the eggs, the stock is coming up, like, you know, it's stabilizing because some of that were killed, unfortunately. And now they're busy rebuilding. Now the chickens are growing and then laying more eggs. So they do say at least by maybe mid of 2025, we should be back to the normal stocks of those chickens that actually laid eggs. So I think that's when everything should be like back to normal then. But I mean, yes, like, you know, prices, they'll come down as more production, supply and demand, as more we produce more eggs, then prices will correct.
Will correct. I love how we started with the plate. We started with our carbs. We said pap, you know, and then we moved to our protein. We are protein. So now let's get into the vegetables, right? Like we are decking the whole plate and we're giving you guys an update on what is on your table. So we had some bands from our SADC partners, Botswana, for example. It's not very rare for some of our neighbors to close the borders. They usually close the borders to support their own growers if they find that we are exporting a lot to their countries, and then the locals do not find they fail to compete or they struggle to compete. So but Botswana, like, that was a bit extended, and I can't remember exactly which crops, or was it all the vegetables, Karabo?
Not all the vegetables, but a lot of the vegetables, like your potatoes and the other popular ones, they were also affected.
Yeah, so they closed the border to us and we were not allowed to export. And then we had some supplies here. So that helped us a bit with a bit of a reprieve, because I know the potato prices at some point were very high last year.
Because, yes, on the potato price, we had a frost.
Yes.
A black frost. If it is a black frost, it means it's even colder than the normal frost. Black, man.
Yes.
Frosty. So we had that in the Limpopo area, which is popular.
Very, very big. I think it's the second largest potato growers in the Limpopo area.
Yeah, it's very big. And it's one of the provinces that produce potatoes throughout the year. So because of those black frost cold temperatures, then we didn't have the supplies.
Yeah.
But luckily that's sorted. We do have potatoes.
We do have now. You'll see the price are down. What's interesting with potatoes, right? So you have like the Sunfeld area that is producing at a particular time. Then you'll have like the Northwest. You'll have like Limpopo, and it works nicely in concert. Like when they are harvesting, maybe the other ones are growing, and it usually helps with the supplies to the market.
Yes.
It helps with the prices. But when a big province like Limpopo is affected, it means those guys must now plant very quickly, or there's just no supply, or something needs to happen. And then you find the consumer being so stressed, not understanding why are the potatoes so expensive. But guys, there's so much going on in the background that we are gonna keep you on.
Definitely. But we're just happy that this whole potato mess and the frost is a winter thing. Can you imagine if it happened in December? Potato salad is a staple. Guys, potato salad.
It is.
The other year was eggs, then potatoes, then imagine there's no eggs and potato. So I think I'm so happy that frost came to the winter.
Yes. And speaking of December, right? I remember the other year we were so stressed because load shedding was so bad. So to do a lot of like stockpiling also, because you're thinking, what if the power goes off? But 2024 was different, especially for the growers.
Definitely, Consi, over 300 days without load shedding as at the end of June.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Recently, like this recent weeks. So can you believe it? That's how many months? A lot of months.
Yeah, maybe
10 months,
like 252 days of the year. So that was amazing in terms of just for us also as people, because living with load shedding was really not nice. But for the growers, I mean, in 2023, when last did we do this video? But I can't remember. But do you remember when the chickens were dying because there was no ventilation? And you like
and they had to pay extra money for generators
and solar systems, and it just doesn't really make it work for some of the farms.
Irrigate and even all these nurseries, you know.
Like things were dying, plants were dying, animals were dying, pigs were dying. It was like such a sad situation, and the producers were really in a tight spot. So just to see load shedding a bit less was not just good for us, it was good for everyone in South Africa, and let's just keep it that way.
We hope it's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
We hope it's something that we live. Because if things are like this, even our farmers are going to flourish. Because all that money they used to complain about the money they have to spend on the diesel and whatever that they use for the generators, all of that petrol, it adds to the cost. So the fact that you have stable electricity really helps, because then they were also forced to look at solars, like you were saying, alternative energy, especially those chickens intensive businesses, because one wrong move, you have chicks dying, and then that will definitely affect our prices.
Yeah, so no, speaking of just inputs, so we've covered electricity, we've covered the feed. Also another thing that came in 2024 that was a bit better, we started to see some of the agrochemical prices declining, and some of the fertilizer prices also declining. Yes, it's not pre-COVID levels, but it has really helped the industry to get some sort of a break. And also the fuel cost, and the fuel cost was like,
if I remember correctly, they were like consecutive months, I think 5 months or something, like from May to September. Guys, don't you remember the prices were just going down for fuel, for
Yes.
petrol,
Yes.
and obviously when petrol, diesel also comes down, and then the producers. And remember October, then they planting and all of that. Remember when they're planting, they have to prepare the land, use a lot of that fuel. So it really came in handy.
Yes,
And
at the right time.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
the agrochemicals, like you're saying, if we look at maybe the fertilizer prices year on year, on average, maybe 11% if you look at December data. So it's we're going somewhere. We're really going somewhere.
Yes, compared to like a year before, there's been a really like an uptick in some positivism. We see
Russia,
that
Ukraine,
war.
yo, it came and then things were going crazy. Then
It was
COVID,
hectic.
those two. So
Oh,
yeah, recovery.
The geopolitical landscape just destroyed everything we knew and turned everything upside down. But things are normalizing to an extent. Obviously, agriculture in South Africa, we are not like working on as an island. We get impacted by what is happening in the world. So when you're thinking the Trump administration is going to have a lot of impact in.
We'll have to unpack that in one video.
Yes, we need to, but it affects the trade in South Africa. When you're thinking, like you said, the Ukraine-Russia war, that affected a lot of our logistics. COVID affected so many things, and we had such lingering effects. I can't believe we talk about COVID like it was 10 years ago, but it was actually like 5 years ago, and even that 5 years feels like yesterday, but because we're still dealing with the ramifications of COVID. And so, yes, guys, we are positive for 2025.
Yeah.
The rain is sort of back, but we need follow-up rains. Because
Feb and March, very important months. We will continue. We need follow-up rain so that those crops can grow, and then the white maize prices, like Consi said, almost 7,000, can now go back to normal levels. Because if you compare 2025 prices with 2024, you'll see that it's up by way more than 50%. So that's like that's a lot of that's a lot of increase in a year.
Yeah,
it's a lot of increase.
There has been so much happening in Agri-Karabo. I feel like you and I need to catch up everybody every week.
Every single week, guys. Hopefully, we will be super consistent this year. We will be giving you all the topical things. We'll tell you all the highlights that we're picking up on the market. How are they affecting you? Look out for more exciting videos on our channel.
Yeah, absolutely, Karabo. Like, this was supposed to be short and sweet, but knowing me and her, we probably went a little too detailed and deviated, but when the news is so nice and so packed, we didn't even unpack it the way we wanted to, but we don't want to bore you guys with our economist jargon. We were focusing on our full plate, like I mentioned. What happened with your carbs, what happened with your protein, what happened with your veggies, and what happened with your fridge. So you had electricity, you could store your fridge, and this is why your pap is expensive, and this is why your potatoes were expensive, and your vegetables, well, maybe you got some better prices this year compared to 2023 because our friends said stay at home. But that is us in a nutshell. Until the next video, take care. Bye. Subscribe, share the video to all your friends. You know how we do.